pods are closed.
Well, it's already gotten to the point where after working, trying to keep my own home up, helping other Flint residents,
Helping the camp a lot.
yeah, what I can do for the camp. When I get home at 8:30 at night and I get up at 3 a.m. in the morning for my job, I don't have the energy to throw my biggest pots on the stove and dump in my rainwater and heat it up. So I have been taking showers in the water.
Back to taking showers in the water.
Yes. And plus it's been so dry, my rain barrel has gone dry in all the extra water that I've taken out. So it's either open up 4 cases of bottled water, you know, dump half of them in my pots, which heating up on my stove also heats up my house. I've been showering in the water.
Okay. Can I back up? Earlier you said Mark Edwards was in D.C. I wasn't aware of that he was in D.C. in 2000 when they had the lead poisoning?
It was
yes.
16 years before Flint found out we were poisoned.
I didn't know that, but I connect dots. I haven't verified this, but I found out through a credible source the other day. I need to verify it. But Dane Walling was an assistant, I guess, to the mayor in D.C. during the lead poisoning in D.C. Kind of odd, same players in the same situation. You know?
Yeah, that's a connection worth exploring.
And by the way, Diplomat Pharmacy, I think they originated in Flint, but they were outside of Flint in Flint Township, which is now being renamed Carmen Heights,
Carmen Hills, or
like
whatever,
that,
yeah.
to disassociate themselves with Flint. Anyway, they moved their world headquarters. They're the world's largest specialty pharmacy. They moved their world headquarters into Flint, Michigan, and into a GM-owned building, the Great Lakes Technology Center. And Dane Walling was the mayor at the time and gave them a 15-year tax abatement. So no taxes for 15 years. My question is, why would the world's largest specialty pharmacy move their world headquarters into Flint unless they foresaw a need?
I agree. Now you spoke something about pods. Could you explain for the viewers what these pods are, how many there are, how that works?
They're called pods because their point of distribution is what they are. Okay. And up until the first week in September, the state was paying core workers to staff these pods. What they are they're different points in the city. There was one in each ward that brought in bottled water, and the residents could pull up there. You give them your address, they write down your address, they load the water in your car, and you could take water home.
How much water?
10 cases, I think you get 10 cases.
Actually, I've seen people pull up ahead of me with pickup trucks and get, I think you can get up to 40 cases at a time if you can get it in your vehicle. However, since and Melissa Mays, when in her lawsuit, she fought to keep the pods open as long as possible. They were supposed to have closed in March of this year, and she raised such a stink that they said they would keep them open until September 1st. Well, come September 1st, the state was going to pull the plug on it because they're saying the water's fine. You can drink the water through the filters. Personally, I haven't had a filter on my faucet since November or December last year because I just don't drink the water or use it for cooking. But anyway, as of September 1st, all the pods are supposed to close. Well, I went with Flint Rising and did a few actions out front of the pods, trying to convince the citizens to use the pods as often as they can, because the more traffic that went through there proved that the state there is still a need for the bottled water. Mind you, this Fast Start program where they are replacing lead and galvanized service lines, they're supposed to have 18,000 of them replaced by the year 2020. So from 2017 to 2020, what are we supposed to do for water? You can't afford to go into a store and buy a case of water for $2 a case when you're using that to bathe and drink in and cook with. So anyway, they closed all of the pods. There were 9 pods in the city. They closed all but 4 of them. One on the north side, one on the south side, one on the east side, and one on the west side, where you can still get bottled water. And like I said, it made it very convenient for the residents, because you just pulled up, they came out, asked you what you needed, if you needed filters, replacement cartridges, bags to put your empty bottles in, cases of water, and the test kits. They load it all in your car. You wouldn't even have to get out of your car. Now they're limiting the amount of water you can get at one time to like 10 cases. I don't know if they're limiting it 10 cases per pod or per address or whatever. All I know is I've got 60 cases stockpiled in my basement in advance of them threatening to close them in September. So the 4 pods that are left are open indefinitely. However, the state of Michigan is no longer paying for the water.
Who's paying for it?
Actually, the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan is going to be supplying the water.
Okay.
The core workers, I believe, are still being paid for out of the money that came to Flint for the water crisis.
So if folks wanted to deliver bottled water to Flint, you would recommend taking it to the Eastern Food Bank?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because you know they distribute the food, and yeah, they've got a big warehouse. You know, that's where when all the donations initially came in, when Flint first hit the map, and we had all the celebrities and everyone coming in to donate money and water. All the water was going to the Eastern Food Bank of Flint because they had the warehouse where they could handle it all. And then it went from there to the fire stations, which were the original points for picking up the water, until they came up with the idea of the pods. But yeah, anybody that wants to donate water, you could go to the Eastern Food Bank of Michigan, and that's on Lapeer Road.
So I'm assuming you could Google that.
Mm-hmm.
So if any of the viewers are watching that right now, if you could Google Eastern Food Bank.
Food Bank of Eastern Michigan.
Food Bank of Eastern Michigan in Flint, and put that in the comments, I would very much appreciate it.
It does. And another point, another dot to connect. All the water pods, all the water has been delivered by Penske Trucking. If you Google Penske Trucking, it's a spin-off off General Motors. They've had an 80-year working relationship with GM, so it seems like GM's profiting off bringing the bottled water after they intentionally poisoned our water. And there's no regulations on bottled water, so who's to say it doesn't have poison in it too?
Wow.
You know, Nestle's got big pockets. By the way, I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but when Governor Rick Snyder made this decision with the EM manager to switch to Flint River water, his chief of staff's name was Dennis Munchmore. Well, Dennis Munchmore's wife, Deb Munchmore, is a spokeswoman for Nestle Water.
Yep, that's a fact. I can back that one up because I've been aware of that for a while now.
Yeah, and Nestle is the one that in Everett, Michigan, had a pumping station, and we're pumping like, I don't know, 150 gallons of water, pretty much free of charge for a $200 fee they pay a year. We're pumping the water out, putting it in bottles, and selling it. Mm-hmm. And people were buying it and supplying it to the Flint residents. They earlier this year, or the end of last year, they tried to apply for a permit to triple that amount of water to take out and bottle and sell. And fortunately, the permit was not granted at this time. They're still trying to get it. But they're taking resources out of the state of Michigan, water, which Flint desperately needs, and they're putting it in bottles and they're making a profit off it. And that's all through the governor's blessing.
So, in just to sum everything up, what do you, each one of you, see as a solution?
As far as the water problem goes, the only safe solution to have safe drinking water in the city of Flint is to have the entire infrastructure changed. From the treatment plant, all the lead mains, which nobody's talking about, because all the mains in the city are still lead. So no matter how many service lines they replace, you're still going to have lead coming into the homes. They need to replace the water lines from the treatment plant. They need to upgrade the treatment plant. They need to replace all the lead mains in the city, fix all of the broken mains in the city, replace everyone's service lines, not just the lead and galvanized. My line personally is copper, and I've got the highest lead levels in the city of Flint right now. 4 out of the 8 highest lead levels in the Sentinel testing program, out of the 8 highest that are testing in the city, 4 have lead service lines, 4 have copper service lines. But they're saying copper service lines are fine. They need to replace all the lead mains, they need to replace all the service lines, all our interior plumbing needs to be replaced, all of our fixtures, faucets, hot water heaters, refrigerators, dishwashers, washing machines, anything that water came through needs to be replaced. And if they do that, maybe, just maybe, I would feel safe drinking water out of the tap. Until then, no.
What do you think, Tim?
I agree that we need a complete new infrastructure, and I believe the people that have been affected need lifelong health care, and I believe the people that are responsible need to be held accountable.
Be in jail where they belong.
Absolutely.
If I went and poisoned Desmond, fed him lead, and he passed away, I'd be charged with murder.
What was it? Is it Nick Lyon? I can't remember.
Yes,
Yeah,
the head of Health and Human Services.
When he got indicted, he actually has, I've got a meme, a quote of him that says, "Everyone has to die of something."
Yeah. And yeah, and basically and he's one of them that was charged with involuntary manslaughter. He is still in office. I mean, he is still, him and several other people that had already been charged, including the emergency managers, who it was their idea, supposedly, to switch to the Flint River water. They've also been charged with involuntary manslaughter. As far as I'm concerned, it shouldn't be involuntary. It should be voluntary manslaughter or second-degree murder, because they knew what they were doing when they changed over to the Flint River. They knew that the phosphates were not being put into the water. They knew what the results were, what was going to happen if the water wasn't treated with the phosphates. And as far as I'm concerned, they all belong in prison.
I was at the city council meeting when Dane Walling was still mayor. And it was the prior meeting up at the small table in the front. And Eric May, sitting at the other end of the table, held up a report I believe Art Woodson got for him that said, it was a report made out to Dane Walling. Dane's sitting at the other end of the table, and Eric said, "Dane, did you read this report? And did you read that it recommends not using Flint River water?" And Dane put his head down and he said, "Yes," quietly. And then Eric said, "Did you read that it says if you did use Flint River water, you must use phosphates?" And he put his head down and said yes. And then I think he followed up with, they didn't even have the equipment in the water treatment plant to put the phosphates in. And I think it equated to saving $100 a day.
Basically, yeah.
Something about that. It was about $100 a day of phosphates. Seems kind of a very minimal amount to save the health of a lot of people.
But the water treatment plant wasn't set up for that. The water treatment plant it was set up to, when the water comes to us from Detroit, it goes through the water treatment plant, and they double check the treated water that's coming from Detroit. The water treatment plant in Flint was never set up to handle raw water from Lake Huron, let alone the Flint River. But they knew that, and they decided to go ahead with it anyway.
By the way, the KWA, or the Detroit water we've been getting was pumped in Port Huron, and it was finished there and shipped through a pipeline to Flint. And like Vicki said, run through the Flint plant. The KWA, the privatized pipeline, is pumping in raw water and shipping raw water through the thumb to Flint through prime fracking area where they've been buying up the mineral rights. And also the Motts own Michigan Sugar. They have all their sugar beet farms in the thumb, so that could be free irrigation for them, couldn't it?
So I have a question on here regarding the water operators and why they were charged, what the charges were. Are you guys familiar at all with what the charges were?
It's been a while. My memory isn't what it used to be. The first person they charged was Mike Glasgow, the guy that was in charge of the water treatment plant. And that shocked me because he told them like a month before they flipped the switch that the water treatment plant was not capable of treating the Flint River water. He didn't have the people, he didn't have the equipment, and they pretty much told him, shut up, we're flipping the switch. And they flipped the switch. He was charged, was one of the first people that was charged. They've since dropped the charges because he's cooperating with the prosecution of the other people that were charged. The emergency managers, I believe, were charged with fraud because they took money out of the water department fund to pay off other outstanding bills in Flint. But they're both charged with involuntary manslaughter because they were aware that the treatment plant was not able to treat the water. And they said, go ahead, do it. As far as Nick Lyons, there's some of the people that were, I can't even remember their names, but Nick Lyons, the head of Health and Human Services, was aware of the Legionnaires in the water and never said anything, kept it quiet, so that people continued to die and get sick from the bacteria in the water. He knew about it and kept his mouth shut. He's charged with involuntary manslaughter. Dr. Wells, Eden Wells, the state medical doctor or whatever, who's also still practicing, she wasn't charged with involuntary manslaughter, but she was aware of all the problems, and up until January of this year was still telling people everything's fine, everything's getting better. As far as I'm concerned, like I said, they should all be charged with at least voluntary manslaughter, if not second-degree murder.
Somebody just weighed in, Tyler Durden, and he says that the gentleman you mentioned, Glasgow, works for Lansing Water now.
Yeah.
Oh.
So.
Yeah. But as far as I was concerned, I was shocked when that came out because I was aware of the fact that he had emailed the emergency managers, the governor, everybody, saying that Flint was not ready and they all said, just shut up, we're flipping the switch. So as far as I'm concerned, he's one of the heroes
They made him a fall guy.
in that.
Hold on.
Yeah, they made him a fall guy.
What exactly did you say, Tyler? I want to make sure we get it correct. Who works for Lansing Water? Wait and see here. As soon as he says it, we'll make sure we get that on record. But so, so it sounds like the staff level, are being the scapegoat, even though it's been the higher ups that have made the decisions.
The way corporations work.
Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, somebody else that should be prosecuted is, for one, our Genesee County prosecutor, who's spent a lot of time covering up for these people, and Jeff Wright, who is the Genesee County Drain Commissioner, and by a strange coincidence is also CEO of the KWA pipeline. Talk about a conflict of interest. Dane Walling is on the board of directors of the KWA pipeline.
Is he still? He was the president when he
Or,
was mayor.
or president or whatever when he was mayor. Yeah,
Josh Freeman. the
Josh
president of the city
Freeman, that
council,
was the
on
president of the city council, was on the board of the KWA pipeline. You just can't tell me that Flint was accidentally poisoned. It just doesn't add up. And I know people look at us like we're crazy or whatever, but you follow the paperwork, you add all these little bits together, and it makes perfect sense. The governor, two of his biggest supporters and contributors to his campaign, one of them has a business that sells the chemicals for fracking. The other one runs a fertilizer company. What's the main byproduct of fracking? Nitrogen. What's used in fertilizer? Nitrogen.
Conan Doyle, that wrote Sherlock Holmes, has a quote that says, "When you eliminate all the impossible, whatever's left, no matter how improbable, is most likely the truth." You know, we've eliminated a lot of the impossibles, and whatever's left it was intentionally done for profit. So, like I said before, it doesn't just affect Flint. Lead-infected plasmas go into everywhere in the world. They tell people at Telecrest, by the way, I think there's 2 different businesses in Flint that do plasma.
CSL.
Huh?
CSL.
CSL, thanks.
I donate at CSL.
Okay. They tell people at Telecrest that plasma goes to men and women in the service and ingredients in aspirin. So, I mean, everyone seems to take aspirin.
And something else the state is saying, which I'm proof that they're wrong, is they keep insisting that you cannot get lead in your blood from bathing and showering in the water. I know some of you in the Environmental Coffee House are already aware of this, but I have not drank filtered or unfiltered water or cooked with it out of my home since November of 2015 when it first came out. Strictly bottled water. And I tested negative a couple times after that. The reason I believe that I tested negative was because lead only stays in your bloodstream for 28 to 30 days, and then it goes into your bones and your organs. So I tested negative like 3 times, but when the lead levels shot up into the 4,800 parts per billion, 3,800 parts per billion, 7,200 parts per billion in my home, I quit showering in the water. Well, not soon enough, because 2 weeks later I went and had my blood drawn and found out the lead was in my bloodstream. They're saying because there's no rules for testing bathing and showering water, they're completely discounting the fact that my bathtub and shower, as little as 3 weeks ago, tested at 200 to 300 parts per billion. they're completely discounting the fact that that is the only way I could have gotten lead in my bloodstream and still be testing positive for it, is from showering in the water. They're saying you can't absorb lead by bathing in it. Pardon me, birth control patches, stop smoking patches, pain patches, what are they for?
Yeah.
You know, they don't strap a pill on your arm and expect that that is absorbed through your skin. So they're telling me that, oh yeah, it's perfectly fine to shower in my water, just don't get it in your mouth.
Well, another thing, when it first came out, they told us to boil the water, which boiling water intensifies the lead.
It concentrates the lead.
So Kurt is originally from New Jersey, and I guess right now they've got a lead problem in their water, and they've got a boil water in effect there in New Jersey, which boiling water, they already know, so why are they telling people to boil water?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
No.
Is there anything else you want to add? Well, I mean, we did talk about a couple of things important, such as the food bank. Any other ways for the viewers to support Flint residents or Camp Promise, or you know, if there's people watching and they want to help, what could they do? Who could they call? What websites could they look at? Things of that nature.
Actually, as far as financial support, any of the money that's donated, like Bruno Mars just donated $1 million, that money did not go to the Flint residents. That went to the Community Foundation, which is basically MOT. And that money is not getting out to the citizens. It's basically going into their bank account. They're drawing interest on it, and they'll decide 6 months, a year from now what to do with it. So as far as donating money to the city, don't do it because the residents aren't going to get it. I know Christina Murphy has got, I'm working with her trying to get funds to put together holistic detox kits to hand out to the residents. So she's gotten a few donations, and we're working on trying to get kits with herbal remedies, vitamins, that type of thing to give out to the citizens, because it will detox, help get some of the metals and stuff out of your bodies. It's not a complete thing like the chelation, which is in 4 months worth of treatment. If you get the treatment within 5 years after you've been exposed, that will help. But she's been going through some other stuff, but she's still trying to get the detox kits together to give out to the citizens. She's on Facebook, Chris Murphy. That's a good place to donate.
Okay.
as far as helping Camp Promise, we need boots on the ground. We've got a great core group of people here, but they're tired. It's difficult doing security at night, fire watch with a limited group of people. Then during the day, those people aren't available to help out. So we need boots on the ground. We need people to come help that have the same energy that we have, peaceful unity to speak out in truth and help. For a while, when we had numbers, we were going up into the community, helping out clean up neighborhoods, houses that are abandoned houses. We were mowing the lawns, cleaning up trash and debris, and we're not able to do that right now with limited amount of people. Kurt's been trying to go over and fix a lady's car that he's had to strut for a while that can't get over there because if we take 2 people over there, we don't have a lot of people left here.
Okay.
So we need help. We're not, no one here has any GoFundMes. We're not a cash. When people come